Uh-oh, your throat's feeling a little sore. You're not getting sick, are you? You can't get sick. You don't have time to get sick. Oh boy, you're getting sick. And while there's nothing easy about that, at Kaiser Permanente, we make it easy to get the care you need. Access your health anytime with our award-winning mobile app, or get one-on-one help with our medical advice line. You can even email your doctor to get help faster, because when you feel like this, help can't come soon enough. Kaiser Permanente. Rise and thrive. Visit kp.org.
Blog Talk Radio.
You're listening to LGBTQ America. My name is Brandon Carmody. We want to welcome our listeners in the United States and around the world. My next guest is often referred to as the busiest man in all of Portland, and no, I don't mean the mayor. Cameron is a proud uncle, storyteller, advocate, policy wonk, kombucha addict, executive director at Know Your City, change maker in the community he loves. Please welcome to LGBTQ America, Cameron Whitten.
Good morning, Brandon. Thanks for having me.
Hi, Cameron. Thanks for being with us today. So we just wanted to touch base with you. There's been so much going on in Portland, Oregon since this incredible election. How are you doing today?
Well, I wouldn't call the election incredible. It's definitely been life-changing for sure.
Definitely. So let's go over a few things here. Can you tell us what is the PDX resistance?
Yeah, so we in America are still recovering, responding, processing what happened during this election this year. I am sure that the whole world is just shocked and shaken to see the results of our presidential election. This country has gone through decades of progress for civil rights for many marginalized people, including women, people of color, immigrant communities, and I'm afraid for that future. I'm afraid to see what will be taken back, what might be lost, and everybody's still processing that, what's going to happen. Everybody is in doubt of what a Trump presidency will look like. For me, I am afraid of my rights as a queer, black, low-income person. I'm afraid of what it's going to mean for health care, for who I can love, for whether I can leave my house safely in the mornings. And so because of all of these complicated feelings, people here in Portland are working to respond to that. And one of those responses that has gotten a lot of attention lately and has really grown in visibility has been Portland's resistance, which is, to put it basically, a grassroots movement of people who are upset, but who feel like we have to come together. We need a coming together of community to have a unified voice and really show what is the change that we want to represent, what is the voice of America's future, and how do we get a decision, how do we get a say, and how this nation moves forward. So Portland's Resistance is looking to organize at a national and a local level to make sure that we really oppose Trump's views of, bigotry, of exclusion, of hate, of fear. We're really showing that there are so many people, communities in this country that want to, live with love, that want policies that include and empower and not just divide and separate.
Excellent. No, those are substantial goals, of course, Cameron. So Portland has been on the national and even international news in recent days as a result of the protests. So just so we clearly define this for our listeners, was the PDX Resistance the group that organized peaceful protests? Is that where the protest began, was with resistance?
No, so there were protests that started election night. I remember I was on my bike. I was leaving an election watch party, and as I was biking through downtown to go to bed, I was around Chinatown, and I heard all of this yelling and screaming, hollering, and at first my thought was, oh, this is Chinatown. Like, that's what you hear at all times at night because, we have the entertainment district there, and there's a lot of social services there, so you're usually hearing somebody screaming for some reason. But then I started hearing, like, Trump, and I was like, no, this is more than just a regular Chinatown noise. And I bike a few blocks, and I find on 6th and Burnside there was a group of at least 200 people, and they all looked around college age. They were all probably students at PSU, and that was actually an initial march. And it wasn't organized by anybody. It was just a call to action for folks who were so sick. Because even that first day, even as results came in on the West Coast at 8 p.m., it was like, yeah, it kind of looked like it was Donald Trump, but really we were also hoping that it wasn't. So when folks really started feeling like it was set in stone near midnight, people started getting out into the streets organizing, and I stayed at that march up until about 2 a.m. And there was another one that happened Wednesday that took the highway, and then Portland's Resistance actually put on its first event on Thursday night, and that was the big event that was covered both nationally and globally. So so far, we've seen Portland's Resistance put on 3 separate events. It includes the Thursday march. There was a community dialogue that they did outside City Hall on Saturday, and then the next day, Sunday, they had a community vigil.
Definitely, and of course, as we
so Thursday, Friday,
and as the
Sunday.
world saw in those events, it was organized as a peaceful protest, and as we understand, there were vandals, there were extra individuals that were not associated with the resistance that came in, and that's what was shown on the news, was the smashing of car windows on a car lot, store windows. So just so that we say it out loud for the listeners, those vandalous actions were not sanctioned. That was not part of the plan. Is that more than a fair statement?
Yeah, so Portland's Resistance had planned a peaceful march going through the streets. There was no planned or endorsement of damages done to buildings in Portland. But I was able to be there for that demonstration. I have live streamed pretty much every mass mobilization in Portland since election night. And what people do not get to see if they're only watching our mainstream media is just the hundreds, thousands of people who are out there protesting for hours peacefully and talking to people on the streets, building community with each other. And that's something that I think people should really know about, is that Portland globally is recognized as the center of the resistance because we are building community here, because we do have a lot of support from people in Portland to be out there and showing what we believe in.
I agree completely, and it should also be noted there is a GoFundMe page that has been set up by the PDX Resistance to help rebuild the city. So this is even though the Resistance is not directly responsible for the vandalous acts and the $1 million damage to Portland, they do have a GoFundMe page, so we'll be sure to link that up. Right now, the funding is sitting at $55,281. So I was there, you and I ran into each other on Friday the 11th, so I know that we saw a lot of the same events when we were in the same space, but you continued on with that march onto the bridges later on Friday night, and you not only saw with your own eyes, but you live streamed some rather traumatic events. Will you please tell us in your own words what did you see and experience on the Morrison Bridge, if you would?
Well, it happened really fast, and this was getting pretty late into the night, and as folks were coming from east side of the river, crossing Morrison into downtown, there was a very unfortunate altercation that happened, and we saw 4 individuals jump out their car, pull out an automatic rifle, throw threatening gestures at people, jump back into their car, then jump back out a few seconds later, and eventually ended up shooting one of the people who were with our peaceful demonstration. Fortunately, that person has survived. Unfortunately, does not have medical insurance, and so I'm worried about his financial safety in addition to his emotional health. But fortunately, nobody was killed during that situation, and the police were able to go out and find the suspects involved in the situation. And so for me, that was a very fast and shocking experience. But I'm also, what I think for me, the strange observation is just the fact that the people who had that gun and were so willing to use that on Friday morning Saturday morning, the fact that they would have pulled that out and used that against somebody else at any other time, and the fact that we had hundreds of people out on that bridge being aware. We had medics there on the scene to immediately help that person who was shot. The police were there, and then in less than 25 seconds, it actually, I think, because of that, we actually saved somebody else's life. And so even though never would want that to happen, the fact that we had so many who were watching and ready to take action, we actually prevented somebody else from being caught in a situation without that kind of visibility.
Definitely, and I'm sure that it goes without saying that all of this has an impact on the situation. So you were live streaming. Was your video able to help in bringing the suspect to justice? I understand that your video may have actually helped identify the license plate.
Yeah, so before the shooting happened, I did I was on my bike, and I biked up to the car, made sure to get a video of the license plate, and because I was being live streamed, a lot of people were able to look at the license plate number, and that information was also passed over to the police. And yes, that's what happened.
That's great. So you were able to play a role in helping the police in bringing this to justice. Does this worry you in any way that this detracts from the goals of the broader message, the anti-Trump message, where we are trying to bring everybody together? Is this a one-off incident, or do you worry about any future occurrences?
Well, I've been talking to a lot of folks on the streets about their feelings on the protests, and it's a really strong consensus of people who are supportive of the message that's out there. We're continuing to see organizing. All kinds of groups have been doing their own mobilizations, whether they are candlelight vigils, they are holding hands across the bridge, they're doing family demonstrations. There's also mass mobilizations continuing to happen. So it's still happening, and I think that our community is doing what we need to keep safe. Fortunately, we've not seen any levels of violence or property damage that we saw in that first week of the election. And I think that we're having serious conversations about what we can do to keep people safe. And I'm sure that there will continue to be protests in the future, because we're seeing, Donald Trump showing his poor judgment with openly appointing people with ties to white nationalism and long histories of racial discrimination and targeting. So I think people are still extremely upset, and I do expect Portland, which truly is the heart of the resistance, to continue taking action.
Definitely. And protests can take multiple forms in terms of speaking out for our civil rights. I want to play a clip for you and for our listeners, and then we'll get your feedback on the other end. So Vice President-elect Mike Pence, for whatever reason, decided to go take in a showing of Hamilton on Broadway, which, of course, probably was a strange decision on his part. But the cast of Hamilton gave an incredible, impassioned plea, not a speech per se, but a plea clip, and we'll get some feedback. Here we go.
Vice President-elect Pence, we welcome you, and we truly thank you for joining us here at Hamilton, an American Musical. We really do. We are the diverse America who are alarmed and anxious that your new administration will not protect us, our planet, our children, our parents, or defend us and uphold our inalienable rights, sir. But we truly hope that this show has inspired you to uphold our American values and to work on behalf of all of us. All of us.
So if I understand correctly, they caught Pence on the way out the door. I'm sure that he caught the speech. President-elect Donald Trump is calling for the cast of Hamilton to issue an apology at this point. What